Wake up. It's the Sleep Unplugged podcast, episode 158. Bruxism. Put you through the grind. Welcome, everyone, to the Sleep Unplugged podcast. I'm Chris Winter, neurologist, sleep specialist, and your host of this podcast. If you're new to the Sleep Unplugged podcast family, welcome. If you're a veteran, welcome back. We are glad you are here. You can get in touch with the show, Dr. Chris Winter Instagram, Dr. Chris Winter Bluesky, Threads, Twitter, X. We have a YouTube page where we put all the video content of our show, as well as a Spotify music playlist that Allie wrote. We'll do our quick comments, corrections, criticisms right here. Allie's comment was, where are the effing playlists? Allie, I appreciate that. I put a post on Instagram. If you go on Instagram, look at my recent post, you'll see one with four playlist covers with the Spotify codes in the bottom. You can scan the Spotify code. It'll take you right to the playlist. Apparently, the playlists are not as easy to find as I thought. We will be adding to volume 4 on this playlist. If you have any trouble whatsoever, just DM me. Dr. Chris Winter on Instagram. DM me. Can you send me links to the podcast? I will send them to you happily. Thank you, Allie. Appreciate that. Big week. Big shout out to the Oklahoma City Thunder for winning the 2025 NBA Finals. I can only assume that when they open up the trophy case to put in the finals trophy, it will be positioned directly beside the 2023 Sleep Unplugged Podcast Award for Best Sports Organization. So I think the trucker hat is going to get some golden company soon. Very excited for this organization. Was really emotional watching it. I will tell you the truth. I didn't watch most of the game because it just kind of makes me ill to watch. At some point that evening, one of my sons texted me and said, "You can turn the game on." So I was able to watch the end of it and the celebration. I just really couldn't bear that organization losing. It was hard enough in 2012 when they ended up winning the first game and then they lost the next four. But I just did not want to see that happen to that team, that organization, and frankly, that city. And speaking of that city, somebody said, when you talk about Oklahoma City, you think about the bombing. And maybe now when somebody says Oklahoma City, they will think about an NBA championship. And I'm just so excited for them. I don't know what to do. So it was also neat to see some of the older players I worked with early in the early days. Nick Collison, DJ White, there celebrating DJ with his family. It was just really cool to see these people who have really put the work in and to see them rewarded. Big shout out to Judy, who has been there forever. She coordinates all my travel when I go there. She is a lovely person. And just there's so many great people. Donnie Strack, the GM, Sam Presti's the nicest guy in the world. I mean, just everybody there rewarded. Kevin, excited for you, buddy. Yeah, just couldn't, Tony, guys, just everybody. Just so excited for everybody. Just spent some time out in New Mexico. Java Joe, Crash Murder Business, Little Bear, three great coffee companies that kept me caffeinated. Went out to Los Poblanos Farm and had an amazing brunch. Overheard some people next to me talking about sleep and sleep apnea treatments and Inspire. And I pulled out a sticker and leaned back and stuck it there and said, "Hey, if you need any help, I do a podcast about sleep." And they were so excited to talk a little bit. So sorry for eavesdropping on your conversation. Um, the song lyric today is from the Beach Boys. "Put You Through the Grind" is from their song Our Car Club off their third album, Surfer Girl, which was released in 1963. This followed Surfin' Safari, their debut album, 62, Surfin' USA, 63. Uh, Brian Wilson died on June 11th, and I wanted to do a Beach Boys song. And here you go, a Beach Boys song featuring the term grind. No problem. This was a big album. Surfer Girl was a big album. It had Surfer Girl, the single, also Little Deuce Coupe. But it was really the first album where Brian Wilson really exerted his creative control. Brian Wilson was an absolute musical genius. He would sit in his house. He had sand brought into his house, put all around his piano. So as he composed on the piano, his feet could be in the sand and he could feel connected to the earth and the beach and the vibe that he was looking for in his music. He was actually obsessed with the song the Ronettes song "Be My Baby." Would listen to it hundreds of times a day, allegedly. I wasn't there. Uh, and often felt like Phil Spector, who produced that song, was talking to him uh, via his schizophrenia, which was really just kind of something else. And so we'll put this out there. Now, had it not been for the death of Brian Wilson and me really wanting to feature the Beach Boys, the song for this episode, and we will put it on the Spotify music playlist, would have been the Alice in Chains song "Grind." Let me sleep so my teeth won't grind. Honorable mention. My youngest son Cam loves the group King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Their song called Hog Calling Contest features the line, "Then my hooves start to thrash and then my teeth start to gnash." That would have been a great one. Addicted to Love by Robert Palmer, but was covered by Florence and the Machine, which is my favorite version. My Heart Sweats, Teeth Grind, Another Kiss and You'll Be Mine. We'll put some of those versions on the Spotify music playlist. But I have to say that when the term grind popped in my head, and I thought, okay, we're doing an episode on Bruxism. It's time. Grind. There was only one song that popped into my brain. I'm 52 years old. If you're about my age and you hear the word grind and you think about a song, I'm guessing a lot of you people out there, whether you want to admit it or not, go right to Prince's Darling Nikki, which I certainly did, and went right back to sixth grade, where Jason, I think, brought in the cassette tape of this song on a Walkman. And during breaks and recess, we were all like listening to it. I remember hearing this song thinking, I'm going to get expelled for listening to this song. I really should not be privy to this little group of people by the slide that are listening to this song and the teachers not knowing about it. It felt so intense and scandalous that that's definitely going on the Spotify music playlist. And if it offends you, I am sorry, but it is a classic song. So, before we dive into Bruxism, a couple weeks ago, we started a tradition that we said, okay, the last episode of each month. So the first episode each month, Insomnia, is the Insomnia episode. The last episode of each month, we are going to update the top 10 sleep threat lists. So we put that out. You can find it on my Instagram page. It's got its own little icon at the top now, so you can see each month's top 10 sleep threats. So, top 10 sleep threats we came up with. And recently I was out in Seattle at the big academic conference and asked ChatGPT to take a look at this list that I compiled, talked to a lot of colleagues about it. So we tweaked it and nailed, got our list. And I said, based upon the research that's come out of this Seattle conference, I want you to update the list as you see fit. And so here from 10 to 1 are the updates. So number one, late eating or heavy spicy foods is out. It received some votes, but it is now out of the list. Our new top 10, which is new to the countdown, is bedroom noise and sound disturbance. Why? Because several Sleep 2025 studies link sound level to measurable sleep fragmentation more strongly than diet. There was an abstract from Smith and then also an abstract from Hofbauer entitled Brain Response to Intermittent Nighttime Noise. So it finds itself in the number 10 spot. Number 9, chronic use of sleeping pills stays put at number 9. Why? There was a bunch of CBTI replacement studies and benzodiazepine withdrawal papers really showing that long-term downside use to these sleeping pills. It stays in the top 10 list at number 9. Number 8, down one spot from 7 is caffeine in the afternoon or evening. Why? Only one major abstract this year, but there were clear findings supporting this long-standing knowledge. Number 7, down 4 spots, alcohol use. Why? A few solid dairy and psychological studies reaffirm its impact on REM and awakenings, but there wasn't enough to sort of keep it at the top based upon other evidence. Number 6, psychological hyperarousal before bed, stress, rumination, doom scrolling. A lot of brain imaging studies, CBTI mechanisms, real world rumination tracking studies. There's a paper by Kim, a paper by Gordon, a paper by Mehta. So a lot of evidence saying that psychological hyperarousal belongs right there at number 6, so it stays put. Down one spot Inconsistent sleep schedule, down from 4 to 5. Large population studies on teens and adults showed metabolic and mental health effects of schedule drift. Abstracts by Sue, Harrington, Gentry. The Gentry abstract was really interesting. Sleep timing variability linked to depression scores. So definitely there. Up 2 spots from 6 to 4. Sleeping hot. Strong empirical field data and lab controlled studies on smart bedding, core temperature manipulation, and aging. There was a Ramish paper I read. Ambient temperature, sound, light, and sleep efficiency. There was a minor abstract. That is the last name, minor, MINOR. Climate and sleep and 7 million nights of data. So ChatGPT felt like this was really compelling. Number 3, up 5 spots. Evening light exposure, especially blue light. There were multiple randomized clinical trials on screen filter efficacy, blue light therapy, and delayed melatonin profiles. And we've been sort of diminishing light and maybe blue light a little bit on the podcast. The research coming out of Seattle was really looking at the opposite. Number 2, down 1 spot, sleep deprivation. I never thought that it would be taken away from the top spot. Still foundational. Dozens of abstracts covering memory deficits, immune response, and performance decay with sleep deprivation. But the new number 1 sleep threat is shift work, night shift. Dominated the program this year, studied from every angle: circadian misalignment, metabolic effects, cardiovascular strain, retention and healthcare roles. So we have a new number 1. It is shift work, night shift. And it further compounds this idea that getting the right amount of sleep, important. Getting good quality sleep, important. But the timing of our sleep remains really important as well, too. So very excited about that. We will put that out there. The sleep threat top 10 list. Will it change at the end of next month? So let's get into Bruxism. Sorry, that was a long introduction. I hope it was useful to you. Sleep threats, always important to pay attention to. Bruxism is something a patient mentioned to me not too long ago, and I was kind of surprised that I had never done an episode on the topic and really wanted to jump into it today. Bruxism is another fancy word for teeth grinding, and you typically see it in a lot of people. I always thought about a quarter of people, 25% of people had bruxism. I think that about a quarter of people have medically determined or defined bruxism. The ICSDR stated that 85 to 90% of the general population grind their teeth to some degree at some point in their life, although only 5% will develop a clinical condition. So the numbers are really kind of all over the place depending on where you look. It tends to be divided into 2 groups. There is the sleep bruxism group and the awake bruxism group. And it should be noted that the sleep bruxism group is probably the wake bruxism group, but really technically stated, it's the wakefulness while you're sleeping bruxism group and the awake while you're awake bruxism group, meaning that most people feel like bruxism always happens when you are awake or aroused from sleep, that there is no such thing really as grinding your teeth while you are clinically asleep. Bruxism has been very much linked to nightly arousals, especially in transitions from deeper sleep into lighter sleep or during brief awakening. So you have that awakening. There's a burst of autonomic activity. Heart rate goes up. There's increased sympathetic tone. The EEG arousal happens, but doesn't happen as to be a full awakening, meaning an arousal is you are now, your brain is awake. An awakening is you're aware of being awake. And this is confusing to people when they look at sleep trackers. Like, my God, I'm waking up so much throughout the night. I had no idea. Right, because those are arousals from sleep, not necessarily awakenings. So there is research that basically says that 80% of sleep bruxisms are preceded by some sort of cortical arousal event during the night. There was a 2023 review in Sleep Medicine that also confirms that the bruxism events do happen in conjunction with arousals, and they don't really happen during periods of uninterrupted sleep. But when we're thinking about bruxism that happens during the sleep period, maybe more precisely put, tends to be more common in young people. And as we get older, it tends to lessen with age. This is something that we often see in little kids. As we get older, we tend to see less of it. The awake bruxism that's happening during the day, during our wake period, does seem to be a bit more common in women than men, although gender distinctions in bruxism are a little bit harder to sort of parse out. The causes of bruxism are varied and very poorly understood. This is considered to be what is called a parafunctional activity, which is a parafunctional activity is a repetitive, involuntary habit that involves the mouth and the jaw. Think about chewing, thinking about speaking, thinking about swallowing, but also think about things like thumb sucking, nail biting, lip and tongue biting, tongue thrusting, clenching your jaw. These can often be sort of corollaries to bruxism, meaning that I don't necessarily grind my teeth, but I remember in college waking up with a sore jaw and the scalloped tongue, like when you would put your tongue out, you could see your teeth indentations along the side because you're shoving your tongue up against your teeth, which can often cause dental problems. You can move your teeth and cause all kinds of problems. It was a very uncomfortable condition. I remember having a lot of times during exam times. So that kind of stress and kind of creating that clenching that sometimes you sit in there studying and you're like, why am I clenching my jaw? So I would consciously kind of realize I was sort of tense and then kind of relax when that would go on. Um, Most mechanisms that draw upon where bruxism is coming from tend to be related to dopaminergic dysfunction, which is probably why you see it more in individuals with Parkinson's disease or Parkinson's-like conditions. Multisystem atrophy, I think, was up there as well too. Medications can cause bruxism in some cases, as can conditions like autism, Down syndrome, and other developmental difficulties that young people may have. Tend to see a lot more bruxism in those populations. What are the signs of bruxism? There's a bunch of them. Not the least of which is the sound of the grinding that happens at night, which I've heard it once. It's unfortunate. Patients bring me constantly sounds of their partner snoring. I, I get it. It's like, here, I want you to hear this, doc, because it's important to us. I know what snoring sounds like. If you say my partner snores so loudly, Dr. Winter, I don't know what to do. We all know what that sounds like. And the fact that you took the time to record it is great. Not terribly necessary. It's not like, oh, it sounds like that. Well, then I might want to do this. You might pick up on some apnea or some, cataphrenia or something. But, here's what people never record that I wish they would is the sound of bruxism. You should look it up on YouTube. There are a couple examples. These are sound. I can make a snoring sound. There you go. That's a horrible sound. You would not want to be sleeping next to it. I cannot make a bruxism sound the way these sound. These sound like, you remember those big marbles? Like you would play with little marbles, but then you have the big cat's eye. It sounds to me like somebody's taking marbles and just grinding them together with incredible force. I don't know where this sound comes from. It can be so loud, and I've never met a patient with bruxism who can recreate the sound during the day. I mean, it's amazing. It is a testament to the strength of your teeth that you can create these sounds with them and your teeth not constantly be breaking, although breaking teeth can certainly happen. Cheek biting can go along with it. So sometimes they wake up with, blood on their pillow or blood in their mouth because they're biting their cheek or biting their tongue. And these things bleed. Burning sensation in the tongue called glossodynia can sometimes go along with that. It's probably because the tongue is constantly thrusting against the back of the front teeth. We've talked about the scalloped tongue. Um, a lot of pain in the jaw. Sometimes people's masseter muscles, these muscles on the side that cause the jaw to clench, can become bigger and hyper. You can see it sometimes in individuals when they clench your jaw. Sometimes you get a little bit of a popping sound in people's jaw. So you ask somebody to open up their mouth and close it. And you can kind of feel some issues there. The biggest way it comes to our attention is you go to a dentist. The dentist says, "Wow, you're really wearing your teeth down. You probably should wear some sort of guard to protect your teeth." So not to skip ahead to treatments too quickly, that's where the guards come from. It's like, we're not going to stop the grinding, but we are going to put something over your teeth So that as the teeth are rubbing together, they're rubbing against plastic and not necessarily your teeth, which can be very detrimental to the status of your teeth when that happens. So, what does the research say about bruxism? And again, we'll go back to the sleep conference here in Seattle and look at some of those things too. There wasn't a lot of bruxism research that came out of Seattle, but in terms of looking at more recent research about bruxism, there has been sort of updated definitions and consensus statements about bruxism as recently as March of 2025, where a workshop revised the definition of bruxism to clarify sleep bruxism and awake bruxism, removing the phrase in otherwise healthy individuals, which really broadened the clinical relevance of bruxism as we think about it today. A lot of people have it, a lot of people are dealing with it, and trying to distinguish between the wake and sleep can be very helpful. Neural mechanisms are sort of under scrutiny. We think about dopamine as being the neural mechanism that is the most common likely pathway here. There was a review published in Frontiers of Neurology, which analyzed 95 studies to map the neural circuitry involved in bruxism. And these dopaminergic pathways and the related circuits seem to be interacting with arousal mechanisms during sleep to produce the bruxism that we see. So we're really, trying to broaden our idea of, hey, let's shove some plastic in somebody's mouth to protect your teeth, to let's figure out where this is actually coming from and try to, map these circuits out, which might lead to interventions and more targeted therapy to make them better. The research that I find really interesting, and this goes back to like research about sleep apnea causing heart disease, was always the one of the biggest mechanisms was increased oxidative stress, which goes along with it. And then you looked at restless leg syndrome and you're like, there's heart disease that goes along with that too. Well, there was actually a 2025 study in Scientific Reports that said people with sleep bruxism exhibit elevated markers of oxidative stress, hinting at a potential endovascular, so like the blood vessel lining damage and cardiovascular risk. So, what we're really boiling this down to is a lot of times anything that's disrupting sleep could be leading to cardiovascular risk. So, yes, protect your teeth, wear the night guard, but could that frequent grinding that your partner is recognizing have greater risk than to your dentition? That's really, I think, what we're looking at now. And as you think about the cardiovascular risk and endovascular changes that are happening, as well as looking at the neural circuitry and trying to understand that better, those two things are probably going to come together to help us understand a little bit more why this arousal mechanism that's not functioning the way it should, manifesting as the bruxism, could be related to much more risk and danger and negative health outcomes than we really know. Bruxism and migraine is always a big one. This was something that goes back to my, general neurology days, that a lot of people with bruxism often came in with headache and migraine difficulty. There was a 2025 case-controlled study showing that patients with TMJ and TMD had more mixed bruxism episodes and longer sleep bruxism episodes compared to people without the TMJ dysfunction. So solving one, working on one may be helping with the other. A lot of research has come out recently saying, look, you don't have to be stressed to have bruxism. So this, what I just said at the top of the show, when I was studying, when I was in my midterms in medical school and finals, is when I would have the scalloped tongue and the sore jaw. Yes, they can go together. But a 2024 polysomnographic study revealed no significant risk between insomnia or emotional distress and sleep bruxism. So it's raising questions about where this connection is coming from, how prevalent is it, and how much of a thing does it really exist? And then finally, there was some research recently looking in 2024 about 3D printed mouth guards versus milled stabilization splints, and that the more customizable variations might be more helpful to people with TMJ in terms of effectiveness and compliance versus people who do not. So in terms of treatments, Oral appliances, we've talked about those, the night guards. They reduce tooth wear and try to redistribute the force over your entire dental surface area versus those two teeth in that one position that are really putting a lot of force on each other. They don't really stop the grinding, but they are protective, not necessarily curative. They're widely used. Newer trials comparing these 3D printed models do seem to be working better. That was a German study in 2024. And for some, these may worsen symptoms if they're poorly fitted and can exacerbate TMJ. So you can imagine, when we use oral appliances for sleep apnea, what's a big concern? We talked about it in the oral appliance episode for sleep apnea. TMJ, jaw popping, jaw pain, especially if the device is not fit properly. So there is this weird feedback of you're putting this thing in to protect your mouth. It's a little bit uncomfortable in your mouth, putting your jaw in a weird spot, which is creating more jaw discomfort, TMJ pain, which could retroactively make the teeth grinding worse in some ways. There is evidence of Botox being effective in individuals with teeth grinding, where you're using the botulinum toxin to temporarily weaken the masseter or sometimes the temporalis muscle, which reduces clenching intensity. There's randomized controlled trials that show reducing this um, can happen in people with moderate to severe bruxism. The effects usually last about 3 to 4 months. You can get muscle atrophy, chewing fatigue, smile asymmetry, etc. So it's really best for people who are not responding to traditional therapies. There are medications that we typically use. Benzodiazepines have always been the mainstay. So something like Klonopin, clonazepam, to help reduce the arousals during the night that lead to the nighttime bruxism. Tricyclic antidepressants can help in some cases. SSRIs often worsen bruxism. Potentially Paxil and fluoxetine, paroxetine and fluoxetine can sometimes worsen bruxism, and Buspar may reduce jaw activity without the sedation that comes along with the benzodiazepine. There are biofeedback approaches that can be helpful for both awake and sleep bruxism. Treating the underlying medical condition if there is one. So patients with sleep apnea can often have remarkable recoveries from bruxism because the awakenings from breathing that are happening throughout the night were the culprit. Now that the breathing disturbance is gone, the bruxism disappears as well too. GERD, periodic limb movement disorder, anxiety treatments can all be very helpful for individuals with this condition. And then just psychological stress reduction, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, relaxation exercises, prayer, journaling, whatever you can do to tone down anxiety and stress before bed has been shown to correlate with awake bruxism as well as sleep bruxism. So that's it. Bruxism, the grind is through. If you have questions, comments, corrections, criticisms, ideas about Bruxism, what was your first interaction with the song, Darling Nikki? And is it as a profound a memory as it was for me? Let me know. Dr. Chris Winter Instagram, Dr. Chris Winter Twitter, X. Follow us on the YouTube page. Download the Spotify music playlist, volume 1, 2, 3, and we are now putting all the songs from today's episode on volume 4. Another big congratulations to the Thunder. Another big congratulations to the Indiana Pacers. Another great organization. Big shout out to Dr. Abhinav Singh. You can find him, Sleep Vigilante. He wrote a book, Sleep to Heal. He's going to get it next time because he works with the Pacers. So that's it. Sleep bruxism done and dusted. Have a great week. Until next week, sleep well.